Friday. Man, this is, what are we at? Episode 22. We've been doing this for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months and just rocking and rolling. And the whole purpose of this show is it's really simple, is a lot more of a casual conversation where we drink whiskey and talk about business, talk about sales, talk about mindset. And awesome, my buddy Curtis is joining us. So he's like the actual official co-host, just so you know, Avram. So how do I get Curtis? There we go. You are now the co-host. So this is what's going on. So we're talking Whiskey Friday today. You know what? Today is really cool. I had a client bring this to me. Actually, my friend Cody, she brought this to me. Nikka coffee malt whiskey is from Japan. And at first I thought she was trying to drug me because you bring it and then you get this, like, she was at a nice, like, a wine bar the other day and they were doing this. So you take the eyedropper of water and you just add it slowly until you find like the right flavor because it's super strong out of the gates. I usually drink my stuff neat. But now this is allowing me, it opens it up a little bit. And once I called it like your sleep country number, where at a certain point, it's like, that's exactly the flavor I want. So it's pretty badass stuff. I like it. So that's what I'm drinking. Curtis, what do you got going on?
I'm just going to wait for the waitress to help me out here, but as soon as she comes along, I'll let you know.
All right, cool. Where are you at?
The Breakwater.
Breakwater. Oh, man. Well, then I'll just join you after. And Abrams, what are you drinking? You're drinking super, super fancy stuff right now, right? Abram, what are you drinking?
Fancy water.
Yeah, I'm drinking water.
Yeah, so that's it. The nectar of the gods. Cool. So today, Whiskey Friday, what we're talking about is this idea. I've been posting a lot, and actually I'll throw my link in here. If anybody hasn't joined this group yet, come and join us for the conversation. Abram is part of my group there as well. We're having these conversations around sales, around improvement, around just like doing kick-ass stuff. And one that's been coming up quite a bit is this whole idea of, what's your why? And anybody that's seen, the Simon Sinek TED Talk, it starts with why, his book, all that stuff. I feel like over the last couple years, the whole idea of why has become a bit convoluted and a little bit like almost trendy for people to say, oh, I'm really following my why, and sort of like, talking about like, oh, I believe in, I want to create freedom and I want to do this. And I think people are sort of just saying it for the sake of saying it. Would you guys agree that's true?
I think it's got a little bit trendy about just, getting into that conversation. But the actual essence and the real core of what that is all about, I think it's really excited about talking about that.
Yeah. And Avram, you feel the same thing kind of?
I would agree. It's not, like Curtis said, trendy is a good word. That's pretty much what it comes across.
Yeah. And this is what I'm seeing when I talk to people. I say, so tell me about, they go, oh, I want to really define my why. And so I say, okay, tell me what it is. And they're like, well, I just really want to create this freedom and I want to do that. I'm like, it just doesn't connect. And they don't even believe it. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in their eyes. And so one of the things we posted in the group the other day is something that I always ask is that, nobody cares about what your why is. When you're talking about your business and you say, I want, that's not what people resonate with. So the thing that we've been saying is, why did you choose to do business this way, right? That now becomes a core driver. It becomes a foundation. It becomes a pivot point. It becomes your value, your mission statement. Everything can come off of that because I did a call earlier today with a group who, they're like world-class coaches and trainers in brain training and hypnosis. And now they're moving into the online space where they're building an online course and group coaching. And my first question is, why are you doing that? Why are you choosing to do your business that way? Because it means that you're making a conscious effort to go into a market to serve your clients in a way that you feel is important, and you need to be able to convey that to them. And so that's really something that I think, and Curtis, with your business and you guys are sustainable, you can talk about that. And Avram, with the way that you're doing it, the way that I do it, I'm trying to create a movement. I'm trying to create a new opportunity for people to simplify and have more fun. And that's something where when people get your why, they're going to resonate with your brand. So why don't you guys, I'll start with maybe Curtis, I'll start with you. Talk about sort of why you guys, because you have a very unique salon and you made it harder than it had to be. But you did it for a reason, right? I mean, you guys didn't have to do it the way you did it, but you made a conscious choice to do it that way. So talk about that.
Well, when it comes down to it, like I really love what you were talking about. First off, I guess the why is it's the condensed version of really what we're about. because we did things a little bit more complicated. We really looked at the details. We were, observers inside and outside of our industry, and we really saw that there was, a real, niche aspect of the market that we personally enjoyed authentically. And so then that's why, we really maybe made it a little bit more complicated by, but you know what, when it comes down to it, it's really about what you love. And we really scrambled. Our mission statement was probably about 3 pages, because I'm never really short on words. And and the 3 pages were like everything, and it was so deep, and it was so communicative, and it really talked about everything that we were, and it lost everyone after like the 5 words into it, because people don't resonate with everything that we're all about, and we might have a really amazing concept of how we're going to do it, like our sustainability and like our client service atmosphere, and being leaders in sustainability and really looking at a holistic beauty concept. And people like those ideas, but I get really deep in the weeds about starting to explain it. And when it comes down to it, it's just what we love is that, we love molding perception. We love being involved in a process of dealing one-on-one with individuals and really seeing it from their eyes, the world, and allowing them to have an opportunity to see the world through our eyes too. That exchange is really our most, unique principle that we really love. And then all the rest of it's just kind of, fluffy and great and cuddly, but that's what's concentrated down to.
Like a bruschetta that gives you a hug, right?
With the little kids on it, and
the
little babies.
Yeah. No, and I like that. And the words, the holistic, what we love, molding perception. But the thing it really resonated with me here is that your whole business, and I know you quite well, is that you have built a really good, busy business that is built off of the one-to-one connections. Like everybody you guys have come through your door is a one-on-one relationship. You guys shut down everything to make that happen, which as a business model is really tough to manage, and it's tough to scale. It's tough to have staff and people in the same vision because it's a lot more work to have to manage these relationships. But if you can do it, all of a sudden, man, you guys have a brand that people will flock to, right? So it's tough. And so kudos for you guys doing the hard work, right?
Yeah, thanks. I think you touched on a couple points that hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about a little bit too, is that, if you're doing it yourself and you're very clear on what you need to do, that's so important. And then your team falls in line with that. But if there are certain industries like ours where you're dealing with artists and people that have, kind of in a way, a little bit of their own business ownership, in that fact that they're dealing with their own clientele and they're looked at as being the main consultant when it comes to doing that Design House is just a medium or media opportunity for them to be able to coexist and be able to host, their amazing people that they have coming to see them. But they all have a little bit in their own ways, their own why. And, really engaging in that why and really developing it and really cultivating it and pruning it and developing the seeds that you want so that all of our whys coexist. That's the real challenge. And
yeah, very cool. Yeah, no, I'm gonna ask you some more questions about that too. Avram, what about you, man? I know you posted about your why, and I slapped your hand, and then you came back with a better one.
I appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah, because that's what people like. That's kind of like it was good, but then it was like, okay, but I think we talked earlier today. The one word I always have when I say things to people, I just remember an image that I had years ago of somebody just with the word "so what" across their head, right? And if that stays there, that's what you got to get past. They just stare at you and just And if your why doesn't get rid of that, so what? Doesn't matter what you say, right? So what have you, since we've talked about that, what have you sort of imagined your why is and that? Go ahead.
Okay, sure. So, my primary why is I love helping people.
Okay.
So, I love serving my customers. Thinking a little deeper into what it is I do and when I feel my best. So, and I'm talking about my consulting business right now.
Yeah.
I like creating something. Okay. So, let's say I'm called in to install a phone system for a customer. Doesn't sound very, very glamorous. But the truth is, this is an opportunity to create something because you have a customer that has a need. Okay, so they obviously need something which they don't have today. So I have an opportunity to sit down with the customer, find out what it is they want, ask them for their wish list. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you have this phone system do? Mm-hmm. And then I listen to them talk. I listen to them describe, what their situation is, and sometimes I come up with these creative solutions which make them really happy. And when that happens, that makes me really happy.
Mm-hmm. So what kinds of things happen for them? Give me an idea, because I don't know enough about phones to be like, hey, that sounds cool. It still sounds like nerdy phone stuff. What is some of the cool stuff that would happen that this new reality you create for them where they go, oh shit, that's cool?
Yeah. So, like on a simple level, you have somebody, let's say a salesperson, mm-hmm. in and out of the office, and up until now they've been fiddling with call forwarding their phone, and sometimes they forget to forward their phones, and sometimes they don't. And I set them up with this feature where they're able to ring their office phone and their cell phone simultaneously, and that makes them really happy.
Cool.
And sometimes it can get a bit more complex where they want certain phones to ring certain amounts of times, and they want then they want the calls to roll over to ring another group of people, and if they don't answer, they want it to go to a voicemail box, but they want certain people to check the voicemail, and they don't know how to notify them. Yeah. So I help them work through these issues.
Cool. So and welcome, Kelly. Kelly's my dude. If you want to join us, Kelly, let me know. You can come on in and join the call. I want to hear about your why too, what you guys are doing. Here's something that came up. I was working with a client the other day, and this is kind of why I reposted that thing about the why, was this whole idea about, because she was saying, I'm going to go on this, it was just a call that we had, actually that's yesterday, and she was saying, I got to do the sales call, but she got really worried about, the pricing and the process and what am I supposed to say? And we get kind of mired in, I like this because it looks like weeds, right? We get mired in these weeds where, like Curtis was saying, and I'm like, okay, step out of that, because that's not what they're focused on. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what she said, but I'm like, what you need to tell them if you get caught there, you need to step back and say, hold on, here's what I believe, right? Here's what's important to me, and your why and all this stuff is like, for me, I believe that, everybody should be able to sell. I believe that selling shouldn't be as complex as we make it. I believe that no matter how much experience that you have, if you start to realize how selling could be a little bit easier, a little bit more fun, all of a sudden it allows you just to be more present for your customers and do this stuff. Now, if I say that, nobody can argue that, right? You guys, there's nothing you can say to argue something that I believe. You can argue my price. You can argue my product. You can argue your own point of view, but you can't argue what I believe. And so this is where we always, from a sales standpoint, from a business standpoint, if your belief and your why isn't strong enough for somebody to go, yeah, that makes sense, or if they don't agree, that's fine. But ultimately, there's no shortage. There's no scarcity of fucking customers that are out there. All you have to do is find more people that believe what you believe. And so at the end of that conversation, I told her, I said, at the end of your conversation, if you've really put everything out there and said, this is what I believe, this is what I think should happen. I think hers was, I think you deserve to dream bigger. And we're going to help you get there by really building the best marketing plan for you, because I think you're missing out on potential. I just believe that you deserve this opportunity. If at the end of that conversation, they go, I don't believe the same thing, it's just not a fit. It's not that you're wrong or right. It's just not a fit. So your whole business has to operate around, how do I find more people that believe in what I believe, and how do I get better at sharing that belief? If you can do that really well, the rest of it is really simple. Now, I get paid a whole bunch of money to help people with all the complex stuff to eventually help them get to that point where they're like, this is a lot easier than we made it. Right. So, I mean, that's essentially what it looks like. And so that's why all this stuff is about simplification of those beliefs. Does that make sense, Ken?
Yeah, and I like that point, especially I think Avram touched on this as well, because, in what he's doing, he is creating complex solutions, but he's trying to make it as simplified and as easy to use as possible. And that's really what we're talking about here, is that, we're taking a communication model and we're trying to make it as simple and as condensed as possible in order to communicate your ideas to somebody, and for them, and to separate the ones that get it from the ones that it resonates with and the ones that it doesn't. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But as long as your message is very clear, concise, and simplified and unique.
Mm-hmm.
And authentic, because, you know, if you're actually not, you know, communicating an authentic position, then there's going to be a gap within the, you know, the magnetic, you know, energetic, you know, resonance of that. I don't want to get too complicated, but, you know, you're creating a gap between those, and people can see through that, because you start your relationship. Oh, he's talking about something, he's resonating with me voice, but then there's something about that authenticity that doesn't quite communicate through. And then they're like, well, I like what he's saying, but I don't trust him.
Yeah.
Or I trust him, but I don't know if he really is like getting to the point. Like I have a hard time once in a while.
That's okay, because here's what happens. I think when we, and I know, Curtis, I know what a big heart and all the stuff that you have. I think sometimes the more belief and the more value we have, the more stuff that's in our mind about how well we want our customers to do, the harder it is for us to narrow that down and say it concisely, because we have so many things we're excited about. Right. So what I end up doing, I just talk 5 times as fast as normal, and I just say it a lot. Right. So like, it's one of the hardest things is simplifying. Like I said to you before you got on there, Curtis, to Avram, the client, or the potential client I just got off of, we were talking last night about education, this changing face of education. This school, Bryan University, I just talked to, we're going to start probably next week, and they have like distilled their belief into 2 things, which I love. Their core beliefs are, 1, challenging the traditional educational boundaries about what school is, which is so cool. And then 2 is helping people become better. So their tagline is just liberating greatness. I'm like, I get it. Like all the schools I talk to, I'm like, that makes the most sense. What do we have to do? And I, as a vendor, I'm like, what do I have to do to make it so that we're going to work together? And that's the sales call. We're like, we're just laughing and having fun. That seems way more fun than pitching and features and benefits. At the end, I was like, we didn't even talk about the step-by-step. I was like, I'll just send you some stuff. He's like, cool, I'm in. That's the call, right? Because we connected on these 2 words, liberating greatness. I'm like, I just talked to my buddy Curtis yesterday. We talked about this. I'm like, it's meant to be. Let's get to work. Cost you some money. I'll help you with some stuff. That's it. Right? That's fun. That's fun as shit.
I love it too, because of, you know, just you're building that rapport right off the bat with something very small. And so then that now you're asking questions. Okay, well, what do you mean by liberate that greatness? Or, yeah, I agree with that on the base level. So then, let's talk about it more, rather than like throwing up all this information on somebody and them saying like, oh, okay, well, I kind of understood like half of what you said, but you didn't really give me a chance to really talk about the rest of it with you. And so like, we're kind of half and half now, not totally all in.
Yeah. And the authenticity piece, like I was just thinking, because I just got off this call, and I know I'm excited when I totally lose my composure on like professionalism. And he's telling me some statistics. I'm like, dude, those numbers are brutal. And it's like, he's like, totally. And like, we're just talking like as if I was talking, I'm like, that sucks. I'm like, let's fix that. We can double that. He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's ridiculous. That sucks. And it's like, that's not how you would start. But if you can build that based on shared values, shared beliefs, you can say it exactly the same way. Like, he's a president of a huge company. We can have that conversation because there's trust, right? Because of the relationship. And so that's same thing for you, Avram. It's like, you guys are doing really complex, very technical things. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are you guys working on? What's your business? What's happening? Let me help you fix some stuff. So here's something I'll tell you, that there's 2 things that we stumbled on the other day, because I always like sort of frameworks and language. So one of the clients I was working with, I said, so what are you good at, right? She's like, well, I'm good at this. And so usually when people are good at stuff, she's good at marketing. She's good at this. And we list all these things. I'm like, that's great. We distilled it into, she's good at marketing. I'm like, that's great. But what are you great at, right? Because that's the differentiating factor. If you're good at telephone systems, that's a part of it. But what are you great at? When you actually get your hands on a customer and you get into their business, what's that thing that makes you worth 10 times what they're paying? And so, if we only focus on the things we're good at, necessarily we're going to be things we're transactional in nature. We're competing on price. We're having to position against others. When we're great at something, we operate on an island where there's really no competition, where now there's value. You can increase your price and you're starting to think more like a partnership, right? So that's kind of one of those frameworks. Is I always ask myself, I'm good at this stuff, but what are we great at? And if we get lost in the what are we good at, that's where we start to have to explain ourselves and get caught in that black hole of like question and answers with our clients, right?
So I just learned something. The what are you great at? What are you great at thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I did not look at it from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But that opens up a whole different perspective.
Yeah, and that's it. Sometimes you have to think about this. We always talk preparation before we go into calls, but also on the fly when you're in a sales conversation, when you're in any kind of conversation, is being able to remind yourself, like, you know, engaging that conscious brain to go, hey, wait a minute, we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Being able to pull back and say, well, hold on. That's great. We're talking about that, but here's where we really should be focusing on. Here's what I believe, and here's where I think that we can make an impact for you. Here's where I think that you guys may be missing opportunities, and being able to build that trust in a way where they're like, okay, I'm listening, right? Because if you get caught, they're going to say, well, you know, how does this work? How does that work? How does that work? You have to have the balls enough to say, hey, we're talking about the wrong stuff here. Right? What you're talking about is important, but that comes next, because I don't even know if we're a good fit. I don't know if we share the same ideas on this. Let's talk about that first. And being able to do that allows you to then pitch on these bigger complex projects, right?
Yeah, and I also agree, especially the way you're phrasing, because just to make a note here on what you're saying too, this is not some sort of tactic in order to control conversations. So for all of our listeners out there, this is not something where what Joe's talking about here is not a way to control a situation in order to, you know, somehow manipulate it in a way that's what we're talking about is actually taking leadership in communications, taking leadership in our conversations, and saying, you know what, this is how a process works where we all benefit, and everything has its time, and let's just stay together on this process. And these are some tactics that I would love to be able to do to be able to make that happen.
Cool.
Yeah, I would also add that, you know, from the mindset perspective, by focusing on what you're great at and putting the focus on what it is you're looking to accomplish, you're approaching this situation from a perspective of abundance instead of scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
And that totally gets rid of that transactional nature. So, you know, if all you're talking about is price, well, you know, like you said, is, you know, you're with the wrong customer, and this is not going to work.
Yeah, and you talk about scarcity, man. Like I was talking to somebody earlier today, and you know, it's easy to say, you know, let's have an abundance mindset when you have abundance. Right. That's when I see people that are like, they're kicking ass at everything. They're like, just don't think scarcity. When you're starting out, or when you're like not hitting your numbers, that's a much harder mindset. And so, no problem. So Dave, hi Dave, just in case you want to join there, just keep commenting. We're just going to keep chatting. Welcome to the thing. He's testing it out. Blab is cool. But the whole idea is, one of the things I try and work with, especially when I talk to startups or people are just getting going, is how do you get rid of that scarcity mentality when you actually have scarcity, and realizing that that's the number one thing that usually will hold you back. Being able to say no to somebody when they're the only sales call this month, right? Being able to say, no, I don't think it's a good fit, because it's easy to chase money. It's easy to chase customers. And then all of a sudden 6 months go by and you have all the wrong customers that are taking all your time and draining your energy. And it's just, it's really frustrating. And so, you know, that's what I learned. I know years ago when I was doing sales, that I had to remind myself when I started my business was, you know, I used to say no a lot. I'm like, you know what? I don't think it's a good fit. Right. And I do that more and more now with my business, where I'm like, this just doesn't seem like a project I'm interested in. And they go, but we have money. Good for you. Lots of people have money. I want to find people that have money that I want to work with. Not saying they're bad people. I'll introduce you to other people that probably you would work better with. Right. And that then allows you, and then people are drawn to that. They're like, well, what do we have to do to work with you? Maybe your business has to be different. Maybe your style has to be different, whatever it is. I just don't want to have to, if you got to chase people past the start line, you got to chase them past the finish line. Right. So, I mean, that's the whole idea, is when you're bringing customers, they have to sell you why they'd be a good customer. You're interviewing them as a client, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Question for you, Joe, for some people out there, because, you know, setting up their business, you know, they've already, you know, they're just in this process of starting something and they're in the process of identifying, you know, what is their passion, and they've kind of come up with something that's a good idea. Maybe they've identified a gap in the market. For them, you know, for developing their why, what happens when their why and people, like, their phones just aren't ringing? people aren't resonating with their why? What's the advice you can give somebody that people are just not resonating with that why?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, their phone's not ringing. They probably got to do more marketing. That's it. It's like having a strong why and just sitting at home waiting for people to show up. I mean, that's the secret, right? That's that book, The Secret. If you just want them, now I got a diamond necklace. I just thought about it. I don't know. Whatever you guys believe in, don't care. But the whole idea is like with your why, not only, having a good why, having a strong, why, having a strong value and brand and presence, you have to be able to communicate that. But you have to communicate it in a way that actually resonates with people, right? And I think we talked about what's the 411 is just join. I like that name. That's cool. Okay, cool. So being able to have that why is one thing, but being able to communicate is a totally different thing. And being able to communicate it concisely so that, especially in today's, like if it's online, being able to do so. And I know I'm shitty at this on my stuff because I just say lots of things and I put it out there. People eventually find me because my business, I'm not a marketer. I'm a sales guy. So once people finally realize, they're like, oh, I get what he's saying, they call me. I'm like, okay, cool. Now we can talk. But from a marketing standpoint, when I work with people, that the why has to be like, I landed somewhere, I found this thing. And it's, we talked earlier today is what's that 10-second, like, fuck yeah, that you can create where people like in 10 seconds are like, I get it. That's cool. I get that. Now, then they want to listen to your 1 minute, to your 5 minutes, to your 15 minutes. But everybody worries, like you were saying, Curtis, is like, I'm going to explain this to you, but people don't want you to explain it to you. They want to know in the first 30 seconds, should I even be listening? Otherwise, I'm going to tune out and go do something else, even while you're talking, right? Mentally, I'm thinking about what am I going to eat for lunch? I'm thinking about all this stuff. So your why has to resonate. But from a branding standpoint, you have to know that there is a number of people out there, more than just you. But I mean, if we were selling, crocheted Argyle mittens for gophers, guaranteed there's lots of people out there that would buy that. There's a whole group of people out there that have that, but we have to find them. It's more of a niche market. But for most businesses, there are tons of people out there. I saw the other day, like Billy Crystal won a honorary doctorate at a university, and he was in a stadium full of about like 120,000 people. And I just looked, I'm like, if I could just talk to those 120,000 people, guaranteed I'd have some customers, right? But there's so billions of people out there that we're just not tapping into, and guarantee there's millions of people that believe the same thing that you believe. You just have to get in front of them, and you have to be there when they're ready to listen. Does that answer that kind of, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, definitely if you are doing some kind of niche market like gopher mittens, you might not be able to, really grow that one. But, we lost Joe there for a second. So hopefully he's still coming back, or did you lose me? Avram, I can see you. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay. It was the gopher mittens. He was gone after that one. But he could probably still hear this. I guess one other point that I was just kind of coming up at was also that sometimes a person's why just doesn't resonate with people. And sometimes you need to adapt it a bit, and not to dissolve or dilute your message, but there's resources out there for people to be able to, hey bro,
go for mittens, baby, kick me right out.
So not that sometimes people don't resonate with your why. But, you don't have to dilute your message, for other people. Yeah. But one thing that I would recommend for people is to work with people to, like you, Joe, to be able to condense that message and communicate it with strength, and also work with other business owners that have had this experience, like Avram, like myself, and be able to get some encouragement or guidance with regards to how we went through that process, or looking for some resources that we can put you in touch with to be able to get you to actually resonate and communicate your unique niche and what your passion is to your potential customers and clients.
Totally. And you know what? One of the things that you said, and yeah, I don't know how my just like Chrome was just like, nope, you're done. Go for mittens, CIA. Enough of that. That's out. But one of the things you said is don't dilute your message. One of the questions I get asked often, like when people are doing sales calls, is like I always talk about, like, don't be a sales weirdo. We talk about that all the time. But they say, well, what happens if people aren't responsive? Like they're not listening, or they're not talking, they're not connecting. The number one thing is don't change who you are. right? You have to know fundamentally who you are, what that belief is, what that why is. And then when you share it, it has to be authentic. It has to have conviction. And if it doesn't resonate with other people, who cares? But if you start to change and be somebody you're not to accommodate other people, that is what starts to dilute it, like you're saying, is, and then people don't really know what you stand for. The same thing in terms of what niche you're in. When I started out as a consultant, I was like, I'm a business consultant. And everybody's like, great, if I need business advice, I'll let you know. Then when I started going to sales and conversations and really getting the psychology, they're like, I get what it is you do and explain why I do it. It's so much easier to talk to people now because I know what I'm trying to do. I know what realm I operate in, because if you don't know what you do, how are other people going to know what they need you for, right?
Yeah, and a good comment here from David too as well. Just mentioning that they're, like networking and these ways that we put ourselves out there, that does refine our message, because you start getting to test that why and then seeing if it is actually resonating with people, and it puts you on the spot. And to really start communicating yourself clearly and start developing that rapport, and then you can start feeling yourself through the marketplace to be able to see that you are actually connecting and with your target market. Because some people just don't. They don't yet, because they need some help and they need some work, and that's totally cool. Give yourself some kindness to self, some patience, do some hard work. Don't just wait for the phone to ring. Get out there and do it.
Yeah, and what you're saying there, and David as well, is often like I have, especially people that are like just starting their business, or even people that are just getting out networking for the first time, and we start having this conversation. They're always like, people like you guys have all heard the 30-second pitch, your elevator pitch. What I see people really shit the bed on is they spend all of this time trying to write the perfect pitch, and they spend zero time talking to people. So then they go and they go out and network, and they're just waiting for their turn to like jump in and say it. And it's almost like, they have this like smug thing where they're like, what do you do? And they're like, well, and as soon as just that moment of that deep breath, they're like, well, blah, 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 blah. And they think, oh, I'm so smart. And they're not realizing people's faces are looking at them like, oh, okay, cool. So the test is like, come up with like a loose idea and go out and say it to people, where if I say to you, Curtis, well, you say, what are you up to? And I start telling you, and your face is like, oh, okay, that's stupid. Stop saying it. But if I say something, even just like a couple words, and you're like, that's cool. You say more of that, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at. Who's joining? I got a caller joining in. Cool. I like Dr. Corey. What's up, Dr. Corey?
Yes.
Cool. What's up, man? How are you doing?
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Well, whiskey is one of my best drinks.
My man.
And how to create the right why for your business and messages and message. I mean, like, whiskey doesn't have to, I mean, you cannot sell whiskey. Whiskey sells itself.
I'm a customer.
Okay, so I mean, like, what are you guys trying to do here? I mean,
we drink whiskey and talk about business. So I'm really not talking about whiskey.
Oh, so, well, I'm a researcher of market success. Okay. And according to the statistics that I've, taken, all the qualitative studies that I did and all the dissertations that I wrote, I see that where this whole economist problem is based on ego. And that's why we are not winning to the next stage of our global technology.
Because of ego.
Look at whiskey. I mean, like whiskey, like everybody's, but the person who made the first homemade whiskey, I mean, when you drank that, you could almost feel the whole family.
Yeah.
And now it's became like something you have in your limousine. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
It's stupid.
It is, yeah. And I think a lot of businesses as well is we're all trying to build a business based on what we want, not what our customers want, right?
Well, if you drinking whiskey and you beating up your, queen wife in your mansion, you're not doing well. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, that's what's going on. And the lawyers come about and they say, we're going to, write it up so you don't have to worry about domestic violence and all that shit. Come on.
Yeah. So how about this? What's your business? You're a doctor. What are you working on?
I'm working on you know, well, I do life and career coaching and business consulting in the real world, you know, with a little r.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, come on, we make the whole matrix of loss, you know, and then I take people to where their imagination haven't taken before. In other words, beyond their imagination, I take them to where they belong.
Cool. What advice would you give to help people break that barrier of like what's holding them back, that limitation?
Fear.
So do you,
fear of success. Fear of success.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, before they even succeed, the $1 billion income a year, they're just like thinking about how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with that? People are going to, shoot at me for this, or they're going to like stumble me for that. And my lawyer's going to say this, and my CPA and the IRS. I mean, like they're thinking about all kinds of, someone is going to steal their underwear.
Because I think what we see is like people often say, well, I'm afraid, what if it doesn't work? Like you're saying, most people are afraid, what if it does work? Right?
No, they come up with all the reasons that it won't work.
Yeah. But so elaborate on the fear of success. People are afraid to succeed.
They're afraid to touch their hand on the $1 billion account. To claim it, to claim the ownership,
Yeah. So how do they break past that and go and change that mindset? How do they shift it? What's some advice you would give?
It's like saying, it's like don't say you gotta jump off the cliff. It's like if I say something to you, you gotta jump off the cliff. I mean, it's like an opinion of success. So the thing is that, however, people who are looking for that, parachuting and jumping off the cliff and whatever it is, or running the bungee jumping, they're looking for jumping, but not landing to die, but get the rush.
Yeah. Where are you based out of? Where do you live?
Los Angeles, California, but I live in another planet.
Absolutely, you do. Yeah, we're just north of you in Victoria, British Columbia, and then Avram's on the other side of the world on a totally different planet in New York.
Yeah.
I used to live in New York. Yeah, New York people, they say it, even though it's not good for them.
So let's come back. So we're sitting on about 50 more minutes here. The topic today, we're talking about, how to create the right why for your business. I like what you're saying about people have this fear, but let's get past the fear and focus on. So now we're going to start, promoting what we're doing. We're going to talk about what we're doing. We were in this kind of unique conversation, and some people are talking about, when we go out and pitch to other people, when we're going to networking and we're sharing our vision, we're sharing our values, that we sort of, it's not resonating. So maybe when you go and tell people about what you do, what's the way that you present it so that they understand and they understand your value and your vision clearly? Is there a way that you explain it?
I used to do clinical help, with AA program people, with the therapy group, with the family group, fear group, all kinds of stuff. The thing is now when you're telling me about sharing, it's like, we're going to get together, we men, get together like grandparents and talk about, our visions. That's not going to get anybody up.
Okay. Cool.
You gotta get up to get it up.
I love it. Amin, I like you too, brother. Okay, so here's one thing that we look at, and I'm going to throw it to Avram. One of the things we talked about earlier, we're saying that, I'm good at marketing, but I'm great at this. That was the first part. The second part of this is a bit of a framework, is I was working with my client. We were talking about, she's good at marketing, but now we say, okay, as Curtis mentioned earlier, I think the lens or the vehicle that you operate in, this is the tool that you use, right? So whatever it is that you offer as your business, that's your tool, that's your vehicle, that's your lens that you look the world through. So I look at the world through the lens of sales, right? And I look at the world, and my vehicle is through sales and through creating cash.
Yeah, but you got to change your tune, Joe, because you sound like a car salesman.
That's good. Well, I'm in sales. I sell cars all the time. No, I don't.
Okay, you sound like a car salesman. I'm just being honest.
That's fine.
Okay, so I'm just saying.
Cool. Now, because I'm helping create a framework for you guys. So we say this is the vehicle, this is the lens that we operate in. Now we say my thing is the vehicle that allows you to do this. And so for you, Avram, that's kind of what I was getting at, is that you use telephony and you use systems and you use the technology. What does that enable your clients to do? That's that sort of framework of thought process. What is that lens that you operate allow them to do? Because sales for what I do, perfect. So for sales for what I do is not about making them money, but what is that cash flow? What is that money? What does that new reality create for them? That's kind of what I'm looking at here. Thank you, Dr. Corey. That was lots of fun. Let's sell some cars. So Avram, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Through the telephony vehicle, I'm helping the customer's business run more smoothly. I'm easing some of their headaches, helping them earn more money.
Okay. So it allows them to ease headaches but what else does it enable them to do, right? Because there's two things we can do. We can either mitigate risk for them, or we can empower them to do something more. Right. So what's the thing? What does it allow them, or maybe the word is enable, empower? What does that enable? What does that create for them? Because this is part of, I think, what you were saying earlier. The three words you use is you're helping, serving, and creating. Right. So one of the things that you like to do is create. And once you start working with your clients and you start building these systems with them, what do you actually help them create? Because that's now you say through telephony, through the systems. Now we help you create what?
Okay.
Does that make sense, right?
Yeah, it does. So I guess to put it into words, in many environments, or pretty much for the most part, when it comes to telephony, you deal with customer service a lot. Why don't we talk about beauty salon? Because I actually do have a beauty salon customer.
Yeah.
So
you want another one? Huh?
Maybe this will resonate with you. So, all right. So let's take an example. This beauty salon in New York. They're also like a boutique shop, high end, and what they have is every Tuesday they have some kind of a class that they give. So they want all their phones to ring on one front desk extension. So basically, they need to be able to push a button, reroute all their calls to pretty much the front desk, so that their staff can serve their customers and not miss any calls and not have people here ringing all over the place. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not like it's an out of the box feature, because the whole purpose of phones is to ring. So you kind of have to think creatively using this piece of technology. How do you accommodate the customer's needs and give them what they want in order to help them do what it is they want to do?
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. It's so funny because we're dealing with that right now, Avram. Actually, Chantel is right beside me, and trying to
get her on the screen.
Working the whole system. And she's the one.
Yeah.
I'm watching.
I like you. Anyways, sorry, Curtis, I didn't cut you off. I just
watching. She's probably here again.
What you said is bullshit. What you said is bullshit, Curtis. That's bullshit.
Yeah. So it's such a good point, Avram, because we were looking for solutions with regards to that. We had a very difficult time, with some individuals being able to solve that problem for us, and a lot of it was maybe just communicating it or whatever that capacity was. But there are always solutions. It's just a matter of like concentrating that effort into some sort of solution. And, that's what we wanted. We wanted a system that rings the front and be able to say, dial 1 to be able to reach, reception, dial, if this is an immediate point, dial 2 to be able to, put a comment. So we're looking for a hardware solution and stuff like that, but it's just a matter of, finding the right person to be able to actually communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, we had, earlier today, Avram was on a mastermind call with me, and I was sharing with him a little bit about what you guys were going through with some software issues yesterday, Curtis. And when we started talking about, what it means in our message it's all about the word that you guys use a few times is trust. They got to trust you as a person. They got to trust that your business can deliver, but also trust that you're not going to create a bunch of garbage in their business. You're not going to create a bunch of headaches. You're not going to have this is why people like you guys said, I don't want to switch software because it's such a headache. It's the worst thing in the world. So as much as you can save me money and make do this and that, I don't care. I don't trust that you're not going to make my business suffer over the next month, 6 months, year. And I got to change everything we're doing. So people stay in this comfort because they don't trust that you're actually going to make this easy. And so what you were talking about there, Avram, is you're saying you're accommodating, what your technology does is you help businesses actually accommodate this changing customer need that's been created because they expect something new now, right? It's not just phones. I talked to somebody earlier today that they are on the phone and it's weird to be on the phone. Most people aren't on the phone. So your technology has to support the way people communicate and your business has to be able to adapt to that. And so most older technology is not allowing us to do that. But the fear of changing is what holds people back from taking action, right?
Yeah. And that's, that's also a new thing, that I learned. Maybe I knew it intuitively, but definitely not consciously. And that is, what you said, the point that you made about, people will spend money in order to stay comfortable. They hear that you're saving them money, but when they have a pain or when they have a problem or a need, that overrides the money, then they're interested in talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. And then that was what we talked about earlier. So Curtis, you guys are saying we will spend money on this software. I don't care what it costs. We just don't want to go through the pain of changing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody about to write that solution for us. It's difficult sometimes to communicate that to people because they just jump into features and benefits and not really really what we're looking for, because, we invest a lot in our systems and there's such a hardship switching over, there's so much on the line for it.
So how about, Curtis, why don't you throw it to Avram? If you guys were to consider either new software, new systems, what would have to happen on the vendor side to make it even something that you would consider, just even having a conversation about?
Well, from a phone perspective, I think the transition would probably be a lot easier. But really, what's the holdup for us is that it's really difficult for us to be able to put what our financial jeopardy could potentially exist from it messing up. If the phone doesn't work and we've canceled our contract with the other line and we've kind of got into a situation with another vendor and everything else, when at one point are we really comfortable with making that switch when it's almost like we just kind of have to deal with what we deal with until it just can't work anymore, and then we'll take that next step, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely a valid concern, and I come across this all the time. One thing that I recommend, and every environment is different, but in situations when the phones are that critical, I actually feel comfortable doing a phased-in cutover. So another a phased cutover. So in other words, you're comfortable with your existing environment right now. And here we are, we're disrupting it by introducing this new technology. And your concern is very valid. Is it going to work? We don't know because it's new to you. So, and then it may be the best technology in the world, but if it's not implemented correctly, or if it's not implemented to your needs, really, right? It could be installed correctly, but not the way you need it. That's going to negatively impact your business. So one thing that I recommend, and I feel very comfortable with this, I feel more comfortable because it's less pressure for me as a vendor and an installer to have them running side by side. So you have your old system running, and then you install the new system, and then you start using the new system. And then once you feel comfortable, you pull the plug on the old one. So that's how I recommend putting in new phones in an environment like yours.
So something like that. I mean, I know I've worked with a number of technology vendors, and I've done technology implementations with teams like CRMs and software. And people are sort of reticent to jump on board with the new stuff. So sometimes we run things in parallel, and most of the time they just hold on to what they're comfortable with. That's usually what happens. But what I like that you're saying is, like, I think this is where, because we're coming back to the topic here, which is the why for your business. And what I know about you, Avram, from our conversations, is that you really do give a shit about your customers and the success of their business. And you're not thinking from, again, going back to the lens, you're not thinking from the lens of the telephony or the telephone or the systems. You're thinking from the lens of, how do we help you serve your customers? Now, what you offer are these telephone systems to help them better serve their customers. And if, like you said to Curtis, that you hit the nail on the head, if your business is critical that your phones don't have interruptions, I don't want you to have that headache. So we're going to make it work for you. We're going to partner with you so that you move into a better situation and don't have any of the headaches that you're imagining you would have, because what you believe, and what I know you believe, is that you can help businesses succeed and communicate with their customers in a better, more effective, cost-effective way. And they're just, the reason they're not doing it is because of that gap and that fear of change. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have that conversation where it's like, I get it, I'm not here to sell you phones. I'm here to make your business do cool shit. I'm here to help you communicate with your customers in a better way, in a way that's scalable, using all the newest and latest technology in a way that's more cost effective. And you're not going to have problems with interruptions with customers. And in order for us to understand what we need to do, we need to step back and evaluate what you're currently doing, what you're trying to do, so that you don't have any fucking problems, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a client to be able to, for the communication to be able to go to him and be able to say, I recognize that you may have some reservations with regards to changing systems. You have a lot on the line. There's potential for interruption in your schedule, for staff training, for financial impact, for your client experience to be compromised in some capacity. I totally recognize that. And I'm really excited about creating a system that addresses all your concerns while we're able to creating and solving all of your problems with your current system.
I put the keyword that excited. I think of that as a key word right there. I like that, because that shows the customer that you're focused and you get your energy out of making them happy and taking care of their needs.
Hey, and you know what? Maybe you guys can take this conversation offline or whatever. Curtis has deep expertise in the salon industry. I don't know, Avram, what your systems can do to solve problems that they have, but it might even be, I mean, you're probably like blocks away from James, who's listening in. You guys, I mean, just pick each other's brains in terms of how you might be able to partner and do cool shit. I mean, that's kind of where it is. If you can start from, rather than you going and trying to sell to this niche group of salons, talk to people that run salons and say, what would I have to do to even just have this conversation, and who should I talk to? Because I don't know if James could use your services, but he's down the street from you, I think. And Curtis and James could give you some insights in that marketplace. And that could be a market that you just spend years dominating because you know exactly what they need to do, and you just make their lives so much easier. Because I know with Chantel, who I think you're listening, but one of the things you said is like you're in the chair, you're managing, you have 100 different hats that you wear every single day. You don't have time to deal with vendors. You don't have time to call vendors and say, hey, your stuff doesn't work. You don't have time to go back and try and fix it. You barely have time to eat, let alone deal. So that somebody coming in and saying, I'd like you to try something new isn't exciting. It's like, oh my God, I don't even have time to listen to you. Right. So if you could bypass that by understanding what's going on, man, you just own that market.
Yeah, that would be great.
So you got to buy Curtis like a puppy or like a bunch of steaks, or not steaks. You don't like steaks, but like lots of veggies, like kale, a lot of kale. He'd be good, right? Yeah.
I like steaks, but I just don't eat them.
Yeah, you buy Curtis steaks because he's got a really good friend down the street that loves steak.
James, if I'd love to talk to you.
Cool, man.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think it is something where we all can solve solutions. We all can. We're in the business of really being excited about solving those problems. That's why we're entrepreneurs. That's why sales is a huge aspect of that. And when you really concentrate on the why of what you're doing, then this comes across very authentic in the communication, because you're just really excited about just being there for this process, because you know that you can solve them. You have the products to be able to solve these problems and have amazing solutions. So period.
Yeah, absolutely. I made my little note there like that. This is one thing this is why I want to kind of reframe it back to the why. Is all this stuff we're talking about is like nobody cares about why. Nobody cares about your emotions, your problems, your business. They care about like how it impacts them. They care about their problems. They care about if you actually have a belief in helping them improve. If there's a also, if there's a reason why you're in this space, if you're just existing in this space because, you think that there's money to be made on phones, that's really, you can't connect with that as a customer. But if you feel at your core, and we haven't really explored that, if you feel at your core that what you're offering actually really improves people's lives because of like phones, because people think of phones as just like it's stuff. But if you feel like your systems and your phones actually improve people's lives, that's what they want to know, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can convey that, man, that kills. So.
Yeah, that's gold.
All right, well, we're at 3:04. Let's wrap it up, boys, for the recording. We can chat for a little bit. We were talking about a little bit some of the guests we've had on today. Curtis, what about final thoughts? Jerry Springer, what are you thinking?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. My phone's just about to die, so I guess that would be a good time to clear up. I really love the conversation. I really loved, really having this condensed version. I have a lot to work on as well for myself. I have a philosophy degree, so I was able to take, 3 words and make it into like 30 pages of paper. That's my skill. The opposite would take, like 6 pages of topic and narrow it down into a really concisive, very direct statement that is completely authentic and very well suited for able to communicate the concept of what your passion is to your potential clients, and really, the passion of being able to understand your clients why would they want to talk to you? Why are they really, in their passion, and to be able to create solutions. Either you have it or you can identify other resources to be able to recommend to them.
Exactly. I'm typing a note here as you're talking there. Avram, what about you, man?
So, this was very, very informative. I picked up a lot of good tidbits. I enjoyed this conversation. It actually got my excitement going.
I can tell you sound pumped.
Yeah. I was definitely pumped. A lot more pumped than usual.
You're so reserved all the time. You're like, from here to here, right?
Yeah, but just like you said, the main thing is not to focus on your why and yourself, but always be excited about helping the customer and solving their needs and making their life easier. Because if you make their life easier, they're going to want to do business with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's it, man. That's so awesome, because that's kind of one of the things that, and when you have those, so this is what I'll do to wrap up. That's what I was saying there in the comments there. Is like you said, you just nailed it. If you can, no matter when you talk to people, when they buy from you, how that conversation goes, if they can feel that you're just genuinely excited about their business, they may not be ready to buy now, but at the point that they're ready to start considering it, are you memorable? And to be memorable is really simple. It's just like going back to, I remember back when I was dating, the easiest thing is to give a shit about the other people. Don't talk about you. Nobody cares about you. They care about themselves. If you get them talking, you get them to feel something, and you get them excited about the possibilities in their lives, that's what they remember. And so in sales, like, they might not buy today. They'll buy in 6 months. They're going to be like, I've been thinking about you for 6 months, and I just can't imagine not doing this without you. And they're going to come back to you and say, hey, let's get to work, because you cared about them. So, I mean, that's kind of what we would say. Your why is not about you. It's about them and how you can make their life more awesome. So I think that's fun. We haven't done Whiskey Friday for a few weeks, but I think that was a good one today. You guys feel good about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was good. We had some good bets. I'm gonna start the recording, but I think that was good. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we're gonna just chat off the air now.